Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. It's John Deere Day today. So what are we going to do? We're going to take a look at this. This is my nearly new John Deere 3035D tractor, which I love. And the one thing about it that I don't really like is the fact that it doesn't have a rear hydraulic circuit. Now, I knew that when I bought it, and I said I can probably get by manually adjusting this top link. Well, here we are not quite a year later, and I'm tired of fooling with that thing. So I bought a hydraulic top link, and I bought the kit from John Deere to install 2 circuits on the back. So today, we're going to take a look at what it takes to actually do that. Let's check it out. All right, and first things first, to make this easy, I'm going to take off my box blade. I'm going to take off my quick connect hitch, get that stuff out of the way, get the tractor in the garage, and we'll take a look and see what this is going to take. So here we are now, box blade off, quick hitch off, top link up and out of the way, but I'm going to take this off now too, since we're going to put the hydraulic one on there. This is about ready to go. The installation instructions didn't look too complicated, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. I do have to take off this right rear tire so I can route the new hydraulic lines. Let's take a look at what we got in the kit. All right, so here scattered across my workbench are the pieces from this John Deere BLV 10901 kit. And it comes in a big box. What you end up with is the new hydraulic valve, a bag full of fittings and miscellaneous parts, a whole bunch of bracketry, and then a bunch of new hard hydraulic lines that are all pre-bent and look pretty nice. I've also got here the box with my new rear hydraulic cylinder and hoses, which we have yet to take apart. A little bit messy here. For those of you who know my channel, you can tell we are not in my actual shop. We are in my new garage, which is actually nice. Got a lot of room in here, and currently my son's Miata is taking up a bunch of room because he's doing some work on the engine bay. So in any case, let's get going. So these are the tools that you're going to need to do this job. Nothing crazy. Notice big impact gun to take off the bolts that hold on the back wheel. If you've got a big breaker bar, maybe that would work, but this thing really made easy work of it. You've got a combination of metric and standard fasteners on the tractor. So for the most part, 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch wrenches. I used to take off some of the knobs. I've got 13, 15, and 10 millimeter and a 6 millimeter hex driver. The hex driver was for the 2 cap bolts that hold on the seat. Most of the fasteners are 13 millimeter. There's a couple that are 15, or 26 millimeter for the bolts that hold on the back tire. You need a torque wrench to put those suckers back at 162 foot-pounds. Flashlight, extensions, hammer, rubber mallet, and my little impact gun, which made taking some of this stuff apart a little bit easier. It's really all there is to it from a tool perspective. So I mentioned that I was going to talk about the instructions. Long story short, they don't give you any. They give you a link, and you have to go print them out. Now, when you print them out, I guess it's going to depend on the quality of your printer, and I have a halfway decent printer. The images are really hard to make sense out of, so my recommendation, have like an iPad or a computer available so you can look at them and blow up the images and really see what you're doing. And John Deere, do me a favor, next time for the 15 cents it probably takes to throw a manual in the box, it's probably not a bad idea. So the instructions tell you to take off the right rear tire first. Then there's a bunch of covers and the seat that have to come off. I'm going to take everything else off first and then this tire. And why? Only because I'm more comfortable working on it when all 4 tires are on the ground. I read ahead in the instructions and it doesn't look like it makes any difference. We'll see how it goes. You can, of course, do it however you're the most comfortable with. Let's get going. Okay, so here's my little gripe about the instructions. You can see this says this is for the 3025, 35, and 43D tractors. And when you actually start to get into the installation, it talks about removing the rate of descent knob with a set screw, and then removing the right and left panels. And this kick panel, well, those are clearly not a D series tractor. Let me show you what mine looks like. When you take a look at my machine, you basically need a 1/2 inch wrench and a 5/8 inch wrench to take that knob off of there. There's no set screw. There is no right-hand side cover to speak of. This is the left-hand side, the driver's side, and there is also no cover. And this is that kick plate, and of course on a 3035D machine you don't have a mid PTO, so there's no depth of cut indicator either. So here's a quick glimpse into the future. The instructions are terrible. Why are the instructions terrible? The pictures they show are not a D series machine, so that explains why the covers and everything else were different. And there's no detail. So long story short, if you want to get this right, you take off the tire. You don't have to take the fender completely off, but you need to loosen it so that you can route the lines correctly. This plate on the bottom, you should remove that as well. That allows you to get in there and route the lines. You're going to have to take off this shifter because some of the linkage underneath is going to prevent you from running one of those lines. You have to take off this metal cover plate because without that off, you're not going to be able to get at the nuts and bolts. Those are the big differences I saw. So you should know that going in. And then the hydraulic line routing. And the instructions don't make a lot of sense to me. Basically, when you get down here, these lines can only go one way. So hopefully I have them configured the right way. I am now in the process of putting this back together, so we'll see how it goes. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I'm not at my shop. My shop is 250 miles away from here. I am in the garage of my future retirement home, and I don't have all my tools. I've got a good selection of tools here, but not all of them. What I don't have is my big 3/4 inch drive breaker bar and socket set. I don't even have a big 1/2 inch breaker bar. I've got a 1/2 inch ratchet and a piece of pipe, and I've been trying to break the bolts loose on this back tire. Using this, just not working. So when you go to do this, if you haven't done it before, you either need a good impact wrench or a big breaker bar. Those suckers are on there tight. If you do this all the time, I'm sure you already know this. So I'm going to do as much as I can today, and then hopefully I'm going to go out and pick up an electric impact because I don't have a big compressor here yet either. Now help me get this tire off. So what I'm doing is as much as I can at the moment. So the light brackets come off of the ROPS. So you take them off of each side, and then there are new brackets in the kit that relocate each side up a little bit higher. All right, since I'm doing everything I can here, I put the valve together. So basically you put in these 4 straight fittings. These are part number 16 on the instructions. These two, these are number 15. These have an O-ring on one side only. These have O-rings on both sides. And this 90-degree adapter, and then this is ready to go into the bracket. All right, here's that valve body ready to go on the tractor. So basically you take this one, the largest bracket, and it's pretty straightforward. The control levers connect here. The bracket mounts on the back. You've got 2 long bolts that go through. You're going to need a 13mm socket and a wrench for that. And there's one more here that goes into a tapped hole down at the bottom. It's the shortest bolt in the kit. So this should be ready to bolt on. All right, so at this point on this other bracket, we've got the quick connects with a snap ring on each side. If yours are sloppy, don't worry. Mine fits sloppy too. And we added the levers and the jam nuts to the valve assembly. Just Two more levers there. I'm not sure what the heck they're for. We'll find out. And let's take a look and see what the next step is. Here's another one that the instructions don't make clear. So your new valve mounts here where the old taillight bracket used to mount. This is the new taillight bracket. So this goes here, and it lifts your taillights all the way up to here. Well, guess what? You need a lot more slack in that cable in order to do that. So the cable runs down through the ROPS, and let's take a look where it goes. And so luckily here under the seat is the rest of that taillight wire. You can see the same thing on the other side. So basically you're going to cut this zip tie, you're going to give yourself enough slack to move that bracket, and then you're going to tighten this back up again. Straightforward, but not called out. All right, so here's that new valve body mounted on the back, on the ROPS, where the old light bracket used to be, new light bracket. So you can see the lights sit quite a bit higher than they used to. Still have to do the other side. You've got the levers that are going to control the new circuits in the back. Here you can see where I used up some of that slack, and I've got a new zip tie. Got to do the same thing on the other side and then wrap up everything else I can do before I need to get this back tire off to do the hydraulic lines. So I mentioned before that I could not get these bolts out. These are some big boys. They're supposed to be torqued to 162 foot-pounds. They're tighter than that. And I think I mentioned before, I don't have all my tools with me, so I tried my 1/2-inch ratchet with a 2-foot cheater bar. And all I succeeded on doing is breaking the tooth in the ratchet. That is the wrong way to do it. So I went out and bought this Harbor Freight electric impact gun. It's 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, 1,050. At home I've got the air versions of these things. I never had an electric one. I've always been skeptical. No reason to be a skeptic. This thing is a lifesaver. So we're going to get this back tire off of here and keep going. All right, with that back tire finally off of there, this rear fender's got to come off. The instructions don't talk about that. Big surprise. They do talk about putting it back on, but not taking it off. So the valve is behind here. Let's get the fender off. All right, here we are under the tractor. The rear fender is loose but not off because I don't think it has to actually come off. We're going to remove this line, that's line A, and then this one, this is line B. And we're going to replace those. And in order to do that, there's a couple of these holders that have got to come off as well. So I'm going to do that next. All right, so A line removed, B line removed, angle removed and replaced with that T. And then up on the top, you can see I had to take the cover off of the control. And this is the B line, and that's the A line. You can see the A line in there. Those things are really difficult to get at, so make sure you have the right tools. For those, you need a 24mm wrench. Okay, so now I've got to sort out these oil lines. Here's what it looks like on the drawing. Here's what they look like on my bench, so let me see if I can figure out what's what. All right, I spent at least the last hour routing these two lines, making sure I have the right ones in the right place. It's very difficult to do. It comes down, that one from the top is going into A. It's the only line that possibly fits there. The other one goes down to the bottom. Hopefully I'm getting this right. So I finally got all three lines routed. That's what they're gonna look like coming off of the valve. Getting around to the bottom, this one down at the bottom here, that's from the very bottom of that valve. This one is from the top going into A, and then the one from the middle goes down into here. Now, that is a sneaky sucker to try to route in there, and of course the instructions don't give you any help. What I had to do, take off the floor, take off the shift lever, remove this bolt. There's a pin here. Pull that pin out to move this back out of the way. There's a bolt on the back of this bracket. Take that off. That allowed me to route the line. What a giant pain in the neck. All right, so from the main valve, we've got this new line and this new line. And that's parts 572 and 573 from the diagram. They route down. Here's one that's going to connect with the union. Here's the other one. Let's take a look at that union fitting. And here's the union that's going to connect those two. There's an O-ring on each side of it. So I'm going to put that in, and then I'm going to connect that other side. All right, here we are back under the tractor with everything hooked up. So here's that T that we put in the beginning, and it connects to that line over there. And there's the other line that goes back to the oil tank. I believe it's got a little coupler in the middle of it. I've got my holders back in place. And really at this point, all the hard lines are in. And really all I have left to do is to put this thing back together. So as I'm wrapping up here, here's the piece that I couldn't really tell where it went. And as I'm checking everything now, I realize back here underneath that bracket mounts on the ROPS. Comes with a nut and a bolt. And that's to hold the line holder. So wasn't clear to me, maybe it's clear to you, but that's where that piece goes. And once you have that bracket in place, you can put on that line holder. So it looks pretty good. Now you'll notice the one thing I'm missing is the protective sleeve for these lines, because it's almost impossible to route all the lines and have them inside the sleeve. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that. And so after 3 days of fooling around with this, and it wasn't 3 full days, but I'm going to say about 10 hours, here we are done. So here's what that 4th and 5th function look like once installed in the back. Here's my hydraulic top link, which is working. I've got absolutely no leaks. When you put it back together, getting that tire back on, that was a little bit of a challenge. You have to make sure that you top off your hydro fluid when you are done. And other than that, we're good to go. Let me just do a quick demo and show you how cool it is to have that hydraulic top link. Okay guys, that was a bigger project than I thought it was going to be, but I'm done and I'm really happy with it. So things to look out for: the instructions are terrible. The instructions have pictures of the wrong series tractor, so you can use those as a guide. I would refer to my video for the hydraulic line routing because it's easier to understand. Be careful when you take off the one tire you need to take off. These suckers are heavy, especially if yours are filled like mine are, so be prepared for that. Either have a really big breaker bar or an impact gun to take that tire off, and then use patience. So it took me 3 days, but it was basically 3 or 4 hours each day until I got to the point where I was frustrated or I needed to do a little bit of research. I took a break. I'm really happy with the way it came out. I put a lot of effort into making this video, and I seriously doubt that there's going to be a lot of people that are actually doing this themselves. But hey, if somebody finds it useful, that makes me happy. And now I have a better understanding of why Deere charges so much to install a kit like this. There's a lot of work to it. So that being said, I am going to go do some work with my tractor. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're not, and give me a like or leave me a comment below.